call the LAFCO meeting to order. Please rise for the flag salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Introduction of the members.
Bill Berryhill, public member.
Amy Bublak, city member.
Jim V. Martini, county member.
Mike Van Winkle, city member.
Terry Withrow, county member.
Richard O'Brien, alternate city member.
Javier Camarena with LAFCO.
Sarah Lettelpenny, executive officer.
Alice Mims, LAFCO counsel. Jennifer Vieira, commission clerk.
All right, moving to item 2, public comment. Anybody have something they'd like to talk about that's not on the agenda? Nope. Okay, we'll move on to approval of the minutes. Everybody got a chance to look them over?
I move for approval.
Second.
Okay, we have a first and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We have correspondence.
There's no additional correspondence other than what is on your agenda tonight.
Okay. Does anybody need to declare a conflict of interest tonight? Nope. Okay, moving on to consent item. Have a motion.
So
for-
moved.
Second.
We have a first and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. LAFCO meeting calendar has been approved. Moving on to public hearing. We have one item tonight. It's item A, LAFCO application number 2019-08.
Thank you, Chairman Van Winkle. Javier Camarena, assistant executive officer with LAFCO. The item being discussed this evening is LAFCO application number 2019-08, the Wells Avenue reorganization to the city of Modesto. The proposed project is a request to annex approximately 35 acres to the city of Modesto. And the proposal also includes detachment of the territory from the Salida Fire Protection District. Site is located south of Pelham Avenue and west of McHenry Avenue within the sphere of influence of the city of Modesto. Following slide shows an aerial of the site. See Pelham here along the north. There's light industrial to the north, vacant land to the east, and a storage facility and mobile home park, residential to the south and west, and the Big Valley Grace Church and their facilities to the west. The proposed annexation, it consists of 7 parcels, 4 of them which are publicly owned. The proposed territory has been pre-zoned by the city of Modesto as planned development and will accommodate approximately 70 to 132 residential units, a drainage basin, and open space on the privately owned parcels. Pursuant to CEQA, the City of Modesto prepared an initial study and determined that the project is within the scope of the city's General Plan Master EIR. According to the Cortese-Knox-Hertzberg Act, there are several factors that must be considered by LAFCO when evaluating a reorganization. A discussion of these factors can be found on pages 4 through 7 of the report, and we'll just highlight a few of those factors during this presentation. So, part of those factors that are considered require an analysis of community services for the territory. According to the city's plan for services, essential governmental services including law enforcement, fire protection, water, sewer, and roads will be provided by the city of Modesto. The site will remain within the Modesto City School District and Eastside Mosquito Abatement District for mosquito abatement services. The city has indicated that it is able to provide the necessary services to the territory. Staff received a letter from the Salida Fire Protection District. The letter states that detachment will have a financial impact on the district. The letter also states that changes should be made to the city's municipal service review and sphere of influence. Staff determined that a municipal service review and sphere amendment are not required for this proposal in particular. Staff looked up the tax records for the properties, for the territory, and they showed that approximately $30 in assessments were collected from the proposed territory last year for Salida Fire. So what staff is recommending is long-term planning between Salida Fire Protection District and the City of Modesto for areas that may be affected by future annexations. It does not appear, though, that this proposed project will have an impact on district services. Staff also received a letter from the Stanislaus County Department of Public Works. The county requested that the remaining territory to the east of the site also be annexed as part of this request. It's this area here directly east of the site, as you can see on the map. One item they were particularly mentioning was Wells Avenue. It goes through both properties. They stated that it makes more sense to annex the entire property because of that street in particular carrying traffic for the city and going through county property. So it would be kind of going through city jurisdiction on the county, back onto city jurisdiction to get to that site. The county also requested that the city annex the full width of Pelham Avenue west of the project site to Tully Road. Currently, the city is maintaining the entire right-of-way of Pelham along that stretch, so through a joint power agreement, and so it just makes sense to kind of clean that up and have them annex that section as well. LAFCO Policy 20 states that the Commission shall consider the following factors to determine logical boundaries. First, the Commission encourages logical boundaries which do not create islands and would eliminate existing islands, corridors, or other distortion of existing boundaries. And second, proposals which are orderly and will either improve or maintain the agency's logical boundary are encouraged. So during the initial stages of staff meeting with city staff and the project's representatives, staff recommended that the proposal include the site directly east that we mentioned earlier that was also requested by Public Works into the proposed project. At that time, as some of you may remember, there was another island here east of McHenry, which was the Modesto Mobile Home Park. They recently annexed into the city back in June. That was included at that time, but since then it has been annexed. So the staff has recommended throughout our conversations that this site be annexed into the proposal. Without it, it would leave 52 acres unincorporated with city along the west, south, and east side of that unincorporated space. Based on Policy 20, consistency with Cortese, Knox, Hertzberg, and the comments received by staff, LAFCO staff continues to recommend inclusion of the unincorporated area directly east of the project site to create a more logical boundary. Should the Commission agree, staff recommends that the Commission deny the proposal in its current form without prejudice to allow the proponent to make a revised application without delay. So, just to conclude our presentation, these are the following options that the Commission has to consider. The first would be to deny the project with or without prejudice. However, staff does recommend denial without prejudice, which would allow the application to be resubmitted in a timely manner to include the additional territory. The next option would be to approve the project with or without modification. which would find the application consistent with LAFCO policies, certify consideration of the CEQA documentation, and waive protest proceedings. If approved, the commission should condition the annexation to include the Pelham right-of-way west of the site to Tully Road as recommended by Stanislaus County Public Works. And the third option would be to continue the project to a later date to gather more information. That concludes my presentation, and staff is available for questions.
Any questions for staff?
May I?
Go ahead, Richard.
If you just take the proposed site for Modesto, doesn't change the fact right now that you have Modesto on the south, the east, and the west side. Then it doesn't change the fact that Wells has city, county, city traffic, as you're stating. Wouldn't it be more logical to go ahead with the proposal as it is and encourage Modesto to move forward with negotiations with the trailer park and other property owners to get them in, instead of, having two separate actions? Because it seems like we need the housing. We need it now. We're badly in need of it. So 100 units, approximately, give or take, should be encouraged to be built as soon as practical. But delaying it for this purpose, you're not changing the scope of the issue, and we should be talking completely with all cities and the county on how to clean up all of our edges and clean up all of our islands. But that's something that we should be encouraging between the county and the cities. But in this case, you're not changing anything except for bringing in 32 acres into Modesto. That's how I see it. I know you want to clean lines all the way around. I want clean lines on ships, but you don't always get them.
The city of Modesto doesn't typically initiate annexation, so when we see development come in like this and there's a illogical boundary, we strongly encourage that underlying applicant to include that additional area, because we know the opportunities are kind of running out for that to happen. In this case, there's maybe one or two parcels left there right in the middle that could potentially have development, and if they come in subsequently, we'll probably be recommending the same thing, to include that whole area. So it's just a matter of sort of running out of opportunities for where development might be, encouraging or spurring an annexation versus the city initiating it on their own. But we are working on sort of an overall county-wide effort to try to get the cities, multiple cities, on board with the county to try to initiate some of these rather than putting it on the new development.
And that mobile home, mobile trailer park, has there been discussions with them as they are annexed in? What is going to be? I mean, that's a pretty big deal there.
Yeah, and it'll be similar to that discussion will be similar to what occurred across the street too. The underlying applicant may be able to speak to that in terms of any feedback that they got.
Any other questions?
Yeah, Javier or Sarah, I'm concerned about the detachment, and that really hasn't been worked out, it seems like, at this point with Salida. It sounds like it's just kind of being kicked down the road. Any future ones, they should talk. Why haven't they talked about this? Why hasn't this been worked out before we sit down here tonight?
Yeah, Salida Fire had submitted a letter probably over 9 months ago regarding the North McHenry area in its entirety, and they're very concerned about that in terms of a large-scale annexation taking away a large area of their district. This one in particular, it may be because the size was so small, maybe because of the illogical boundary as it is, being south of Pellandale Avenue. But in prior annexations where we saw the non-detachment, that was also during a time when MRFA was in existence. And so that is no longer the case. And although discussions between Modesto and Salida have been taking place, there's no new agreement per se to replace that, or an agreement just for this yet.
So I know we talk about it's only $30 a year, but the potential from the growth I know is very important to Salida as they try to keep their fire stations open at this point. And they're one fire station that they have left open. So maybe I'll let them address this when they come up here and talk about it a little bit.
Any other?
Yeah, I'm just curious. This went through the Planning Commission, Modesto. This went through the council. They chose not to bring this in. What was their rationale for that? I didn't pick up anything in my reading.
Well, sort of similar to what I was saying before about them not initiating it necessarily. They're reacting to a proposal that's brought to them, similar to what we're doing. So the proposal that was brought to them was just the
It was
portion.
just this limited.
Yeah.
Right now, this proposal is uninhabited, but if we bring in this trailer park, then these people would have to vote whether or not they wanted to be annexed.
Correct.
So that puts this proposed developer in a poor position then.
Yeah.
And I'm sure, judging from this last mobile home park that we brought in, the cost of hooking up the sewer system to mobile home park is going to be, a fair amount too, because they got to rip up the, the driveways and hook up lines to the city and abandon the septic tanks. So there's, not that that's a bad thing, but I mean there's a cost to the owner there. And then there's the car dealership. I'm sure they don't want to pay the mill tax. I wouldn't if I was them. But I do like the idea of bringing in Pelham Avenue, though. I think that's a good idea. But I'd like to see this thing squared off too, but I'm not so sure it's fair to this developer here that he has to get put back and then have a vote, and maybe lose the vote, and the thing could get delayed for years. The only concern I have. If we went with this proposal and just accepted it, could we bring in Pellendale Avenue? We have that authority to do that?
Yes, so the recommendation is if you do approve it, we've placed a condition in the resolution that would include the right-of-way going westerly, fronting, of course, the proposed outline there in the yellow, but then also going westerly to Tully Road just to clean up that segment.
Yeah, I think the city should own that road. I know from where I live, the city of Modesto has a sewer plant on Jennings Road, and when they annexed that, we gave them the road so they can maintain it now. I'm not so sure about the rest, though. I mean, it looks good to square it off. There is sort of an island, it's an island now, but it's still there. If we just take this proposed area, but there is a risk to the developer that if there's an election, that it wouldn't pass. So I don't know.
Any other
I
comments?
try to be fair here.
Well, I kind of agree with Jim. I don't think this would be fair to push this back on the proposed developer. When we did the dealership came in, we didn't put any recommendations on him to try to incorporate any of those pieces, did we?
No, and he was just coming in for, I believe it was water?
Just
Or water service, yeah. And that was a development approved through the county.
Okay.
I guess I should add, during that process, in that property requesting water, they did have to sign a waiver to any future protest for annexation. So it does sort of assist down the road in that process.
Okay.
I think sooner or later, this mobile home park will have to hook up to the sewer system. Yeah, all their systems fail eventually. But maybe this one's still operating, but we have to consider the cost to the owner there too. I hate to force them into it, but eventually it's going to have to happen. But I'm sure he'd protest it right now.
Any other questions or comments before I open this up? Public hearing?
It's the only thing I'd want to say again is I really like to put Pellendale Avenue into this, regardless of what we do.
Okay. So I'll open this up for public comment now. Anybody would like to come and speak on this?
Good evening. My name is Pat Burns, Administrative Captain with LAFCO. We just want to clarify a couple things for you. We did send a letter back in May 2019 for all of North McHenry.
Can you speak into the microphone,
Oh, I'm sorry.
please?
With our concerns to North McHenry Avenue and our concerns of annexation without detachment. This current annexation, we did not get notice adequately. We received notice for the meeting last month once your agenda did come out. So we did send letters to you guys that said, hey, we were not notified, and we sent our comments in. It is true that this parcel that you're annexing is only $45 annually, but with the proposed development, that's what the large financial impact is. We do have a revenue sharing agreement and an annexation without detachment agreement with the city of Modesto for other properties along Kernan and Bangs. We did take a draft one to the city last week. They did sign off on it. We've been working with Chief Ernst and his people. They agreed to it because it goes for both public safety. But because of lack of notice to us, we didn't have time to execute that before tonight's meeting. And by us requiring or pushing the matter, we recognize it's going to hurt the developer and hurt the city, in which we don't want to do. We want to remain good partners. We just want to formally ask you guys to update our contact information. You had our mailing address incorrect. You had our email address incorrect for the district, both of which were spelling errors. If it wasn't for the Brown Act notice that you sent out for this meeting last month, we would have never known about this. I do have concerns looking at your map tonight. Just to confirm, it would be the yellow dots, not the red dots, because if we take that, it'll be a storage unit on Wells Avenue. That's large financial impact. That mobile home's large financial impact. That car dealership, and as well as we've been given pre-construction notice for a large warehouse going in on that undeveloped property it'll be to the east of that. So we do want to keep our revenue sharing agreements into place with the city. The city and the county both agreed to it. We just ran out of time because lack of notice based on spelling errors on the application from both the county and the city.
So do you think, Pat, that you're going to be able to work out this deal for this parcel then with the city? Have you guys worked something out? Is that what you're saying? Or?
For the proposed or well, for both. They've already agreed to it. We just ran out of time.
Right, for the proposed. So
Correct.
for this, you guys are comfortable that...
Correct. And the way the agreement works in the past is it's the current dollar amount that's collected today goes to the new organization, which would be the city. Anything 2 times that current amount gets split 50-50 between the fire departments. So it's a win-win for both of us.
So you're good. You guys have worked that out.
Correct. And we do it now for Kernan and Bangs. We just, at the end of the day, we want to be good partners to the developer as well as the city because it's going to benefit both of us.
Okay, so that doesn't need to be done before this passes. Sarah, I'm sorry, I'm looking at you.
No, but if you keep the yellow dots, the numbers stay the same. But if you go any farther to the east tonight, there's a larger financial impact immediately.
So in the future, on the other part that's to the east, would you be able to work out a sharing agreement?
Absolutely, yeah. They've already agreed to it, but we just, like I said, we ran out of time. We've been doing this for the past 3 days, and there just wasn't time.
Okay.
So I don't know who we need to talk to make that request on the county and LAFCO for update contact information, but you mail it to a non-existent address, email and physical.
Yeah, so I still want to make sure I understand. So for the proposed project, you guys are going to share in this. Is that what you're saying, or you're not worried about that?
We would like to, but we didn't get it executed back to your board in time because we just ran out of time. But so all future annexations, we would request that we be notified properly, because if we go east and then if you go north, there's obviously a lot of dollar associated with that because it's all commercial.
Okay.
Any other questions for him?
Did Modesto have bad email address and mailing addresses?
They
Because they
emailed
should've-
on the application. They mailed it to one of the fire stations, which is not a valid mailing address. And then our clerk of our board, her name was spelled incorrectly. So we never got the notice electronically.
So is it possible that you could maybe email the staff your
Correct,
correct
yep.
information?
To
to
Sarah,
clear
or,
it?
yep.
Please, yes. Help clear it up in the future, because
We don't want to hinder this project. We just, going forward, there's potential for a large
Because
loss.
if the other warehouse is going to be proposed anytime soon, then you'll want to be notified
Absolutely.
properly.
There's significant revenue loss for the rest of that property.
Okay. Any other questions for me before? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else that'd like to come speak on this item?
Good evening, Mr. Chair and member commissioners. My name is George Petrolakis. I represent two landowners, private sector landowners, who own land in the annexation area who would like to do a very small subdivision annex to the city of Modesto. As you heard from your staff report, it's about 35 acres. It's kind of an interesting area because it's got a lot of public land. It has Hetch-Hetchy right-of-way. It has an MID lateral. It's got two basins, stormwater basins, a city and a county one. One benefit of the project is it will extend the Virginia corridor, the trail Modesto's doing on the old railroad tracks. That's on the western edge of the project. But with all that public land, there's only about 24 acres of residential ground for a small subdivision. And you heard Sarah give you the range of, what did we say, 74 lots to
130?
Right, and so that's based on different variations of subdivisions. We had to do a lot of work. There's a very nice residential area to the south and the west of Modesto, especially the one to the south is very large lots, kind of a very nice. So we had to do a lot of, Mr. DePonte is here tonight, one of the developers, and his mom lives in that neighborhood, so we had to be extra nice to mother. So that's kind of the variations there on the project. We certainly understand staff's recommendation of the larger area, but respectfully request that we keep it to the small area. And there's been some questions about that. I mean, in a perfect world, we would have been fine with annexing the larger area, but it really changes the nature of it. And, it's kind of an interesting time in California where there is, every other week in the Modesto Bee, I'm reading about a housing crisis. And this is kind of a small example, but a good example nonetheless of how everybody just assumes housing is going to fix everything that went before. And there were some, I do want to correct, might be too strong a word, but there were some staff observations. Did you have a public works slide that had their request? I think that showed the area a little better. So it was said that the land to the east is undeveloped, so that's only partly true because the aerials never keep up with development. So we have developed Modesto to the west, we have developed Modesto to the south. To the east, you can see sort of the triangle of the mobile home park, and then north of the Hetch-Hetchy line, it looks like there's a lot of vacant land. But what's been done since this aerial was taken is the county has approved two pretty significant projects. The new, very attractive Audi dealership on the corner of Pelham and McHenry that we all drive by. And then south of Pelham Mini Storage, which is there, you can see the units along Pelham Avenue. There's an extension of that mini storage by the same owner all the way down to the Hetch-Hetchy area. So the Audi dealership is built, the extension of the mini storage was approved by the county this year and will be built. And so really the entire area is either built out, developed, or entitled for, pretty quick building, other than there is kind of a remaining vacant area between the mini storage and the Audi dealership that's owned by the Audi dealership for potential future expansion. So it's all kind of, at the end of the day, what you're left with is, I don't want to stretch the terminology too much, but it's essentially an infill project because it has things actually built all around it, or it has things entitled to be built all around it. So there really isn't, there are no parcels left, there are no more applicants for things. It's all taken into account other than the residential. Staff also said that the mobile home park issue was similar to across the street, and it's actually not similar in terms of LAFCO law, and that's the reason why we wanted the streamlined residential annexation. My understanding is that mobile home park came to LAFCO for an out-of-boundary service agreement, either for sewer or water, and that's what LAFCO said, no, time out. You're essentially substantially surrounded by the city, so LAFCO and the city could use I call them the cram down provisions, that's a little impolite, but you can use the streamlining provisions to force the annexation without protest proceedings. So that doesn't really apply to our area. If we went to the larger area, we would have an inhabited annexation, and really it does create a burden to our proposal, because the other people that would be involved in that annexation normally would have been like the new Audi dealership and the new mini storage, but they're all gone, so there's nobody to split the costs with. And so we're sort of left with the idea of having to contend with an inhabited annexation, which is, Commissioner O'Brien stated, can be very difficult and contentious. We did talk to the mobile home park owner and to get a sense of the park. He's not really interested in immediate annexation to the city. He's grandfathered in. It's great when you're grandfathered in for water from the city from a long time ago. So now, he didn't say, I'll never annex, and I've kind of relayed back to the city of Modesto that I think, and I don't know if they've started the dialogue, but the dialogue needs to happen there, and I think at some point the issues will be worked out. He's got a lot of residents out there on fixed income, so the major financial issues are the hookup costs of sewer to the city, which I think LAFCO's been dealing with when some of the regional agencies are forcing you to do that, and then also the cost of sewer service to his residents, many of which are on fixed incomes and things. So I don't think it's impossible. I think it'll happen over time. It's just not a timeline that makes sense to burden a rather small subdivision with, and that's why the city and the applicant went with this proposal. As one of the commissioners stated, it certainly meets policy 20 because you're essentially maintaining, which is on prong B of policy 20, you're essentially maintaining a very similar boundaries to what you have now, so it doesn't degrade anything there. There was the Public Works recommendation I wanted to speak to. So yes, I mean, wells will serve city and county traffic, but again, I mean, it's also going to serve that mini storage that the county just approved this year. So I think the area, we believe the area will get annexed over time, but it's just not now. The city contends, and I think they're right, that this area is more like the area to the north that you heard from the fire captain, where there's a lot of county urban development up there, a lot of businesses. There's no residential up there, it's really all businesses. But the Audi dealership, the mini storage, and the other couple of business uses there are more like that area. And I think you heard very importantly from the fire captain, it'd be wonderful if the city or I could stay up here and say we planned it this way, but this annexation is small, so it doesn't really degrade them. You'd have a much bigger issue that needs to be worked out on the fire side between the fire district and the city if it did have the bigger area. So, I like yellow dots, so we're within the yellow dots. It has a very minimal effect on everything. I think that just leaves us with the fire district issue, and I think that, if I heard right, it sounds like the residential annexation doesn't do very much to their ability. Certainly, I'm happy they're working on that whole North McHenry area, as we all call it, because there's a lot of uses up there, and that has to be worked out if the city and the county are going to work out, maybe annexing that area so it gets out of the county and into the city where it should be, and that will have an effect on the fire district. Just globally, if you could put up the site map, the broadest map that you started with. I haven't been privy to the city-county discussions. When they were described to me today, it didn't sound like agreement had been reached. I had no idea on any of that. Did you have the one that showed the broader stretch of Modesto, North Modesto, the one before that? Okay. No, there was a map in the package that sort of showed the whole Modesto area that was a good map to talk about this issue on. Essentially, if you look at that map, I don't want to minimize the fire district area here, but it is largely a north of Pelham issue. They did a deal on the Kernan Business Park, and I checked with the city, and it's been spotty. Sometimes there have been deals done, sometimes there haven't been deals done. So but significantly further to the west, where the Kernan East Business Park is, where Kaiser Hospital is, and the hotel across the street, there is an agreement there. And that's, kind of north of Pellandale, north of Bangs, actually, over there, to Kernan. And so that's the big geographic area that has to be worked out between the city and the district, sort of Pellandale between Kernan. So we're south of that and have a smaller effect. I do think it's good that the annexation only has the yellow dots, because then the business uses can be part of the solution. We think we have a minimal effect on it, and we would like to move ahead with the annexation tonight, because it didn't sound like it was that significant to the district. And I do think, the one thing I will say, I listen to housing, until this housing crisis, housing, people like to put a lot of burden on housing, okay? So, but I do think that it makes sense that these homes in Modesto, where people are going to work hard to buy these homes, probably don't need to be part of the solution of paying for Salida fire services. The businesses is a different issue, because they're going to have to decide how it's going to serve. But I think those houses, I think Modesto certainly will provide enough mutual aid service to the Salida district that it warrants not worrying about that pretty small issue on those homes. So that's all I have by way of formal presentation. I'm happy to discuss any questions you have.
Questions?
You had mentioned, you just wanted the area with the yellow dots.
Yeah.
What about the Pellandale Avenue? Do you have?
Oh, yeah, no, that was a good idea. The stretch of Pellandale to the west that's in red dots, yes, as your executive officer stated, that's in the resolution for approval to add that to the city, and I checked with the city, and everybody thinks that makes sense. I think you guys have a JPA now, Modesto maintains it, but it certainly makes sense to, annex it to the other side of the road.
Okay, thank you.
What about, I know you said you spoke to the mobile home park, but what about the owner of the storage? Did you speak to them?
The owner of the storage is represented by the same engineering firm that we use, and so he's not interested in annexation in the near term. Now, they will, I'm sure, if they need Modesto services, and I don't have the time to check that, I'm sure the county conditioned the projects on if they get Modesto services, you have to surrender your rights to protest an annexation. So I'm guessing that happened both with the expansion of the mini storage and the Audi dealership. It didn't look like, I had a map that showed some other things. I don't think that's happened on other development there. The other development there is a lot older. So this is kind of a newer thing by Modesto. So, and I did talk to the local representative for Audi, and kind of got the same answer. But at some point, I don't know the status of everything, but at some point Modesto will have the ability to not have them protest. What it doesn't solve is the issue of the inhabited annexation right, which is the real hiccup here, because, by carrying that, it has a lot of risk associated with it. There's a couple of steps in the process where the registered voters there can just stop the process cold. And instead of taking that risk, that's why we proceeded with the streamlined version.
Okay. Any other questions?
Does anybody know whether the Audi dealership is hooked up to the city sewer system?
I don't believe it's hooked up to sewer. Sewer doesn't go that far, but water, yes.
Just water?
Okay.
Any other questions? All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Would anybody else like to come and speak on this item? No? We'll close public hearing then. We'll bring it back to the diocese for comments, questions.
I'll start.
I see the rationale of trying to tighten things up, but throughout this county, we do still have pockets, and I can see the cost prohibitive portion of continuing over towards the Audi and the mobile home areas there. So I think we're good with the yellow dots where they are and making the long Pelham yellow as well.
That's what I would favor too. I can understand staff's request for the entire area. That, I mean, on the surface, that looks good, and that's what I'd kind of like to see eventually too. But I did have the concern that that now becomes an inhabited area, and it would trigger a vote. And if it didn't pass, then this developer, and I don't know who it is exactly, but their project would be stalled. Could be for years.
Yeah.
And then, you know, the mobile home owner there is going to have substantial cost into hooking up to the sewer system. That would need to be done eventually, but I could see some resistance there. But it would be better to have the whole thing, but I just don't think that's feasible or fair to the developer to have that there and then trigger a vote that probably won't pass. I'm very much in favor of the Pelham Avenue annexation. Oh.
I agree with you, and I'd like to add that I don't think it'd be fair to the, like George pointed out, to the mobile home people that are on fixed income to put a burden on them, especially since Social Security doesn't go up that much. So I would favor the yellow dots with the Kernan or Pelham extension out there too.
I agree.
I'll make a motion then
Okay.
for the proposed yellow dots and the Pellandale off to the other side.
Second?
Okay, we have a first and second. All in favor?
All right, west, sorry.
Aye.
Jeez, the Navy guys. To the west to Pellandale.
Okay, so it's clarified to the west. We have a first and second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Motion carries. Okay. Moving on to commissioner comments. Any comments? No? Executive office report.
Yes, so for the October meeting, we are on track with the Northwest Newman annexation. We'll finally be seeing that. December 4th, we're looking forward to the East Side Water District's proposal of about 2,000 acres of annexation to the district, as well as review of a fire contract between Modesto and Oakdale Rural and City of Oakdale. And that's all.
Okay, so we have the next meeting set for October 23rd.
That's just before the LAFCO then.
Right.
Okay.
And we may need to do a quorum check for that meeting if there's something else that shows up on your schedule for StanCog. But
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if that was official or not, but if that...
I don't know, but I told him I wouldn't be able to attend the StanCog, so just to clarify that right now, I'll
That
be
sounds
here.
good.
So, okay. Adjournment?